You actually joined me in my car at the start of a motorcycle YouTube channel. How quaint. Reason why though is because my favorite feature of my car is the fact that I have Android Auto and CarPlay. It is so simple but so effective. It is simply a mirror for my phone to be on the screen in my vehicle. If only the motorcycle had such a thing. Oh look! There is, but you saw that coming. My thanks today to Carpuride for this unit right here. This is their W502 Pro, wireless portable upgraded Bluetooth waterproof IP67 motorcycle stereo with intercom function, compass / barometer. And breathe. Carpuride was kind enough to provide this to me to gather my thoughts and to provide to you, of course. But I will say right up front, I'm not exactly sure that I'm the right use case for a device like this. But stick around to the end to see whether or not that's a go or a no-go. But first things first, of course, this is what you get, a box. Now let's see what's inside of it. All right, little foam insert here, and there's the device. Looks pretty nice. So we got the unit first off with all the wiring, of course, and it's got this little twist and pull quick connect. That's nice. Cardboard. So we got two kinds of mounts that come with it. There's this Ram style mount, and I think what this one is more of a flush mount. Also have a different USB connection if you prefer. Hardware, leftovers from IKEA, a fuse, and the manual. And for purposes of this video, I'm actually gonna read it. Now what you see with the unit out of the box and what the instructions will instruct you to do on page 1, see I did read the thing, is that it will want you to attach these two leads, positive and negative, directly to your battery. What that means is that this unit is going to have power all the time, whether or not the bike is actually running. But that's okay because it does have a power button on the side, as you can see here, so you can turn it off after you shut off the bike before you walk away. But if it were me, and it is me, I would forget this every single time, and I would always come back to a bike with a dead battery. I much rather actually put this into switched power rather than the battery directly, and I highly recommend that you do the same. It's pretty easy to find switched power. You can check wires for voltage with the key off and on, and you will find one of those keyed power wires going to the dashboard. It's probably even red as well. By instead wiring it to key power, no need to ever remember to turn it on. You just simply turn on the key and it comes alive with the bike. Hey, it's end of video me jumping in somewhere in the middle because I know that most of you don't watch this all the way through, so I just want to say really quick, if you're interested in one of these, check the affiliate link down below and use code LEXDFOX, get you 30% off. Back to it. I just want to pause really quickly here and talk mounting options for this device, because even though they give you a couple of mounting options, I think you need at least a third. So the first one as shown here in the manual is two ball mounts and a non-proprietary, definitely not a Ram mount. And then the second is this little clamp right here that goes onto a bar. And as you can see here, clearly it's for a small bar. Now this is intended most likely, of course, for an ADV bike or something with a nav tower. Of course, I don't have anything like that, especially on a bike like this, but I would really like if I could be able to mount this thing flush to the handlebars right here with a clamp. However, even with that thing, even though you can pull out some of the rubber to make it just a little bit larger, it's nowhere close to a regular sized handlebar, let alone these fat bars here, which are 1 1/8 inches. I would really like if they had at least a bigger sandwich clamp mount so that I could put this a little bit more flush to the handlebars. However, in this case, to get it as close to the bars as I can, I decided to ditch the mount that they provided and used the proprietary, definitely a Ram mount, the shorter version, to mount this thing up so that it's as close to the front as possible. That way I can kind of get a level playing field when it comes to viewing this as well as the actual dashboard. And let's check out what you get when you power it on for the first time. It is like unboxing and turning on a new phone though. There's no connection, so these apps don't really do anything. It's just gonna give you a lot of warnings or notifications that nothing is set up. But we can at least take a look at some of these apps before we go connecting anything yet. The most important one here is settings, and there's actually not a lot of settings. Honestly, I was expecting a lot more when it came to this, a lot more functionality, a lot more customization, a lot more everything really, but all you have here is basically just language, which duh, and some other things, just info. Some information on the Wi-Fi, what it's called and all of that, and Bluetooth, and just basically to say that it is discoverable with Bluetooth. And that's literally all the settings that you have. There are some other things up top here, like brightness, of course, which you can do the slider right here and adjust your brightness. It also has auto dimming as well, so we'll test that to see whether or not that's true both in a daylight situation and a nighttime situation, to see whether or not that actually dims a little bit as it gets darker. But besides the brightness, up here at the top here we have some other things like audio volume. So when you have a device connected connected or voice apparently. You can change that up. There's also an equalizer here with a bunch of different settings, and it looks like maybe some presets. Yeah, a couple of different things you can change down here. And then finally there's another button right here which changes the background to like 3 or 4 just preset background drops. But the one funny thing that I noticed with this is that the background here is set fixed so that when you go through all the settings it stays the same except for Bluetooth. Watch the background right here when I hit the Bluetooth. It shifts to the side, and you can see on the bottom right here there's a little sliver of what's supposed to be there, so a little bit odd right there for the background. The software behind this thing is just a little shifted in this particular setting. It's just kind of funny. There's also another app here called Cards, so you can put an SD card on the side here so you can add some music without the need for connecting to a device if you wanted to, and you can also put other things like video and photos as well. Although one thing that I noticed, I wanted to test this, not that you would ever really want to watch videos on this device because you should be paying attention to the road, if I'm quite honest, but it looks like that took care of it for me because I put some videos on here just to test it out, and this is what happens. Video format not supported, and then it freaks out for a little bit and kind of goes through this endless loop of just it freaking out, and then you just have to tap on it enough times where you can get back to a menu so it stops freaking out. I even put different file formats here, as you can see, with a .mp4, .avi, .mov, .wmv, and none of these things work. I guess in the sense the Carpuride is actually looking out for you so you can keep your eyes on the road. So now we're gonna connect this to the phone. Easy enough. All you gotta do is find your connection settings and go to Bluetooth. Look it up. It will have in the settings, like I showed earlier, the name for this device that you want to find. So at the very bottom here you can see Carpuride. We're going to pair it. It's confirming the pass key. So that's correct. I'm going to pair. Well, now that we got it all connected and I turn on the bike, everything turns on perfectly fine and I get straight to Android Auto. So let's use it for Android Auto things like navigating. So let's put in a destination. I'm thinking something like the zoo. And there we have it. Let's hit start and let's roll. So as you can see, it's a nice bright sunny day like it always is. And right off the bat, I can see that the brightness is perfect. It's not too dim. I was worried about that a little bit, but I have the brightness all the way up and it is perfectly fine. I'm able to look down and I can see it very clearly. It also has this little sunshade attachment, which in my scenario it's actually not really doing anything, but that's just because of the bike that I have it sitting on. But if you had this on something like an ADV bike where it's more up front and kind of in your line of sight, then I can see where that sunshade would make sense. So besides Android Auto, this actually does have some other features like this, which is actually a compass. And no better way to test that than being downtown, because here it's in a grid system and the grid is exactly north, south, east, west. Now you can see we're going west. And now we're going to turn again, and we're going north now. Turning again. Should be pointing east. And it is. And one more turn. Pointed south. Look at that. And the Carpuride also provides a barometer so you can tell your altitude, if you care to know what that is. For example, right now it's showing me that I'm at 0 feet elevation. Who would have guessed? There we are. Your destination is on the left. Definitely works for a really good nav screen. But it's so much more than just a glorified GPS screen. It has Android Auto, so you can do Android Auto things like take phone calls and add to next year's Spotify Wrapped. But to do all that, of course, we got to connect a comm. So I have a Cardo system on this particular helmet, and there are a few different ways you can get this synced up. Okay, so this first connection method is called iPlay, and what this basically means is that the phone is the tether here. So the phone is connected to the Carpuride, and the phone is connected to the comm system, like you would if you didn't even have the Carpuride, like I did. So we're gonna go to the audio output section right here on the device, and you can see right here it's an iPlay Auto, and then there's Bluetooth trans, which we'll do in a second. So going back to Android Auto, everything boots up just fine. So the next step is super simple. All you got to do is turn on your comm system and just let it connect to your phone like you normally would.
Intercom mode, mobile phone 1 connected.
So now we can bump some beats while we ride and while we navigate. Then they have an intercom function on top of that, so you can connect multiple devices to the same unit. That way you and a friend can share in the music. But unfortunately, I don't have a second comm system to add, or a friend, or even a single bike with passenger pegs. Moving on. But anyway, now we move on to the final connection option here. We're going back to the audio output section and switching from iPlay to Bluetooth Trans. So now you can see it switched to Bluetooth transmission, and now what it's doing is using the Carpuride here as the central unit. So both the phone and the comm system are going to be connected to this device. And since the phone is already connected, we're going to turn on the Cardo. It's connecting to my phone because that's, of course, the one thing that it's used to, so I'm actually going to disconnect that. Put it in pairing mode. Then we'll let the Carpuride search for it. There it is.
Paired successfully.
And now we can go back to enjoying our beats while we ride. So between those two connection options, I definitely recommend the second Bluetooth transmission option. That first iPlayer mode, for whatever reason, only allows you to use the headphone portion. It does not recognize the microphone, so it renders things like phone calls or voice to navigate completely useless. And the audio was a little bit different. The iPlayer, I will give it credit, it was a little bit louder, but it was a lot more tinny and a lot more trebly. It didn't sound very good. The second one sounded so much better. Honestly, I don't know why anyone would want to connect using that iPlayer mode. The only thing I can think of is it just depends on the comm system that you're connecting it to. In my case with the Cardo PackTalk Slim, it was perfectly fine with both of those, minus the audio levels, of course. I was able to use the buttons on both of those functions, so Bluetooth transmission it is. How about another destination, shall we? While we bump some tunes. This time I'm thinking Harley Davidson for no particular reason. I don't listen to music in my helmet much these days, but when I do, I sometimes have to remember that you are recording and you don't want to sing to yourself because no one wants to listen to that. So here's a big question you may be asking yourself. If this device is intended for CarPlay, which essentially just mirrors your phone so you can see it on the handlebars, then why not just put your phone on the handlebars? Valid point. There have been phone mounts around for years, like this RAM mount here, and even more sophisticated ones with stuff like vibration damping so it won't damage your phone like Quad Lock. But even with those options out there, and I myself have used a RAM mount in the past, these days I prefer the pocket mount because putting it on the handlebars exposes it to all the elements. And around where I live, that means it gets hot really fast, and it even tends to overheat even if I'm just running something like maps. And if you live somewhere where water actually does fall from the sky, I've been told it's called rain, this device is more waterproof than your phone. Look what I stumbled upon.
It's time for the stunt show.
So, go or no go? Depends. Sounds like a cop-out, I know, but I was loving it in some situations and not in some others. Like, I love just having the maps even though I'm not navigating anywhere, especially on a small bike like the Grom where freeways are not happening. And because of that, I need to take neighborhoods, and where I live, it is mostly defined by nature. So if I'm going through a canyon section, there's going to be a lot of roads with dead ends or that just loop around on themselves. With maps available, I can glance down and get the lay of the land so I know exactly where to go. The interface and the responsiveness of the touchscreen is really good too, especially with gloves, which I would expect since this is intended for a motorcycle. The only thing was that it seems like I do need to be a little bit more forceful with my taps on the touchscreen in order for it to actually click what I was supposed to click, but I guess that's just something that I'll get used to. But on the flip side, it would be really nice if while you're using Android Auto or CarPlay, there was some kind of dedicated home button or at least a quick way that you can get to some general settings. I found it cumbersome going through all the menus if I just wanted to do something like adjust the brightness or the volume. Also, the settings, like I showed earlier, are non-existent on this unit. There is nothing that you can do, and I would like to have a little bit more availability, like putting my own photo as the background would be nice, or even just being able to adjust the clock, which literally you cannot do. What the hell does this mean? Then we get to my greatest hesitation and why I thought initially I would not be the right test case for this. This is adding a screen, and adding a screen adds a distraction. Even something as simple as adjusting your volume or adjusting the view on the map could be enough to slip you up. All told, I think this unit actually does have a really good use for someone who's like an ADVer, a commuter, or someone that's going long distance, somewhere you can have a dedicated nav screen and some music thrown in too. But if you like what you see here and you're interested in getting one for yourself, be sure to take a look at the affiliate link in the description below and use code LexDFox before checkout and get a whopping 30% off of your order. And by the way, if you found this at all useful, entertaining, anything really, go ahead and click the subscribe button. Every click helps. Ride safe.